Oh, you know what?
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome everybody to the special town council meeting for today. It's good to see all these young people here, and thank you all for showing up in your summer. We appreciate it. Item number 1 was call to order. Item number 2 is public comment. If there's anyone here to make a public comment, please come forward. Anybody for public comment? Going once, going twice. All right. So item 3 is recognition of state champion athletes. A, Oceanside Collegiate Academy Boys Golf, and B, Oceanside Collegiate Academy Baseball. So Ms. Hyatt, if if you would do the honors.
All right. Today, we want to first recognize our Oceanside Academy boys golf team. We'd love to have the athletic director, Mark Meyer, step up and represent. That's appreciate that. Let's see. Coach Billy Ross and the Oceanside boys golf team hosted this year's 3A SCHSL state championship tournament at Bulls Bay, bringing home their first state championship. After the first day of play, Oceanside led by 12 strokes over second place Bishop England. On day 2, Bishop England had closed the lead, but the Land Sharks finished strong, winning the championship tournament by 2 strokes. Well done, and congratulations to our state champions, Land Shark golf team. All right.
Stand up. Perfect. Thank you.
They won by 2 strokes. They won by 2 strokes. They won.
That's right.
Right. Okay, next we want to recognize our Oceanside Academy baseball team. If y'all want to come up. Oceanside Baseball won its first state championship this year under first-year head coach Richie McCullough. The Land Sharks went 27-4 overall and 9-1 in region and were undefeated through the playoffs, beating Camden, Strom Thurmond, Gilbert, Brooklyn Casey before facing Chapman High School in the championship series. Oceanside took the first game, beating Chapman at home 7-3, and then wrapped up the championship on the road at Chapman, winning 8-0. That's right. Let's hear it for our state champions, the Oceanside Academy Land Shark baseball team.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Hyatt. Item number 4, recognition of Mount Pleasant Special Olympians. Councilman Ritchie, if you will do the honors for us.
Come on up. Just leave them. Okay. Follow Coach Chris. Let them jingle, man. It's Christmas time.
Good job, guys.
Mayor and council, we have Coach Shelley's going to start off and give some tax information. And matter of fact, let's open up the line a little bit so you can see Coach Shelley.
That's okay. Hello, members of council. I am Coach Shelley tonight. I am your program division chief for our fabulous recreation department, and this is a representation of one of our many programs that we offer year-round athletics and programming for youth and adults with and without disabilities. We partner with programs such as Special Olympics, so they do have the opportunity to have a regular season practice and games and go to regional and state competitions. From these competitions, they qualify to possibly go to national games as well as international games. Side note, Kylie has gone to Greece. And then we've had somebody go to China and Ireland, so it's kind of a big deal, and it's not that everybody gets to go. They go through qualifications, they go through selections, they have to be interviewed, and then they spend, 9 months, you guys? 9 months training, usually about twice a week. So the athletes are very dedicated. The families and volunteers and coaches are all very dedicated. They're sacrificing time with their families and other programs and events they could be attending. And then to focus on USA Games. Let's get to where we're going. It was in Orlando, Florida. We spent 9 days to include travel. They were 21 people from Mount Pleasant representing the town and South Carolina. And South Carolina itself only had we were one of the biggest delegations. We had 189 athletes from South Carolina attending. And there were over 5,500 athletes from all 50 states and the Caribbeans representing their states at the USA Games. And now I just want to announce everybody. I'll try to be quick. All right, we'll start with our basketball team, who took fourth place in their division and probably had the most amazing time of anybody there. So we got Sheldon down here, Daniel, Ryan, partner Josh, Coach Sharon, and it's Catherine, Elizabeth Eads, Grant, Catherine, and Coach Chris. And then down in front, Kylie went for tennis, and she earned a bronze in singles and a fourth in doubles. And we had Erin Patterson, who last minute filled in for someone who was not able to attend. She received fourth in 100 backstroke and fifth in 100 freestyle, and she also participated in a relay. And then we have one of our golfers here, Coach Ainsley and her partner Nikki DeWitt played 4 straight days of golf in 90-degree Orlando temperatures, and they earned silver medals. And then last but not least, our powerlifting team, we had Mark Vito. You can see he earned quite a few gold medals.
Wow, look at that.
And we had Katie Spears, who was the first and only female powerlifter to represent our state, as well as Mount Pleasant, earning silver and bronze. And then we had the head coach, Coach Carl, who was our head coach for the whole state. So he took all the powerlifters in the state. And I would like to hand the mic to him.
Sure. Mayor and Council, this is a small sampling of what we saw in Orlando. It was an incredible experience, not just for the athletes, but I know for the coaches, the volunteers, and the parents, to literally have 5,000 athletes in one place competing and doing their just absolute very, very best. And as Coach Slade said, I did coach powerlifting, and I've been coaching Mark and Katie for probably about 3 years. That in powerlifting, they competed at state level several times, and every time just winning their divisions. That's what helped them earn their way to the USA Games. And during the process while coaching them, I get the call, I think Coach Shelley, you first, and then our folks from the state headquarters saying that we need a head coach to go coach the entire state. Can you do it? Without hesitation, I said, I'm there. And the athletes from the upstate actually came down and trained with us for a couple of times, so I get to know them and know exactly how they train and they work. And we went to Orlando, and the 4 powerlifters just crushed it, earning 16 medals total. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, and again, all these sports, I mean, it's very technical what they have to do. They have to train hard. But in the field, across the board, there were just so many talented athletes from across the nation. And for Team South Carolina, Team Mount Pleasant, and I'm especially proud of my powerlifters to have done so well. I think they deserve a huge round of applause for the hard work they've done now and will continue to do. And I can tell you, I think Coach Shelley alluded to it, we don't stop. We're training. August 1st, the powerlifters will pick back up. As I tell their training book, I call the Book of Pain. They know all about it, don't you, Kenny, Mark? Out it comes, and we start training again. And just like all the other athletes, they'll be training for different state meets and hopefully more on the national level, international level, and just keep supporting our Mount Pleasant Rec Department. I will tell you, working with the other athletes from the different parts of our state, they are just amazed at what our town provides as far as therapeutic rec goes. They don't have as robust a program that we do, and you can tell. So thank you for the support, obviously, from a parent to coach, but also the council member, what we do for them. Thank you.
You ready for everybody?
All right, I'd love to get a picture. Yeah, I think so. If we can get a little closer to council. All right. If you can see the camera, it can see you. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you all.
Great job, everybody.
Great job.
Good job.
Forgot to ask who had kids on any of these teams. All right. That concludes our special recognition tonight. We want to thank all of y'all for bringing pride and accomplishment to our community. And for a lot of y'all, I doubt this is the last time we'll be seeing you. So we'll see you again. That concludes our agenda for this evening. And so we will stand adjourned. Thank you. To our July 12th monthly Mount Pleasant Town Council meeting. It's good to see everybody here, and I hope everyone had a good 4th of July last week, right? Last Monday. And again, we did this at committee day, but I want to thank our staff who are out working hard, fire, police, public services, recreation, everybody. 4th of July is a really fun day in our town. So it's good to see everybody here. Item number 1 on our agenda is a prayer by Chaplain Rob Dewey, and item number 2 will be a pledge. And this week I'm going to ask former Chief Carl Ritchie, now Councilman Carl Ritchie, to lead us in the pledge. Please stand.
Mr. Mayor and Council, if I may, real quick, Gresham, who is a young friend of mine, he's here working on his Boy Scout Eagle Merit Badge, and that's why he's here tonight.
Yes.
So let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time to be able to come to you and just this special place in Mount Pleasant that you have carved out for us. I thank you for these leaders and just pray for all the folks that speak tonight and the decisions that are made, that we would always stay in your will and in your hand. In your holy and blessed name we pray. Amen. The United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the agenda as published, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, our agenda is approved. Item number 4, special public hearings, awards, and presentations. First, I would like to ask Mr. Jim Newsom, recently retired as the head of the State Ports Authority, to come forward and let us give him an honor on his retirement. It's open. Okay.
Hey, Jim.
Jim, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for all you've done for our state, for the town of Mount Pleasant. I have a couple of things for you. I'm going to let you hold this copy. This is the official copy of a declaration we're going to make. And going along with that is a good old-fashioned key to the city. And wherever life takes you from here, I want you to take that with you. But now I'll get to the boring part, which is reading. So if you'll bear with me. Whereas the town of Mount Pleasant wishes to recognize James Newsom III, who has been president and CEO of South Carolina Ports Authority since September 1st, 2009, and retired from this role on June 30th, 2022. And whereas James Newsom III received a Bachelor of Science in Transportation and Logistics in, I won't give the year, in 1976, MBA in Transportation and Logistics in 1977 from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and was named the Outstanding Alumnus in Transportation and Logistics in 1992. And whereas James Newsom III has received many prestigious awards, including 2021 International Maritime Hall of Fame Award, South Carolina Economic Developers Association Distinguished Service Award, Roger Milliken Defender of Manufacturing Award, and the Containerization and Intermodal Institute's Conning Award. And whereas Jim Newsom has led South Carolina ports to attain many notable achievements, including modernizing the Wando Welch Terminal, deepening Charleston Harbor to 52 feet, opening 2 rail-served inland ports, for which the people of the Low Country thank you for railing those up there and getting them off the highways, and opening the first greenfield container terminal in the United States since 2009, the Hugh K. Leatherman Terminal. And whereas Jim Newsom's leadership has led the Port of Charleston to achieve consistent record-breaking volumes while growing above the market. As a top 10 U.S. container operating port, South Carolina Ports brings new business, economic development, and 1 in 10 jobs in the state of South Carolina for the benefit of our citizens. And this is the biggest one now. Whereas Jim Newsom led the organization in building a world-class, state-of-the-art headquarters in the town of Mount Pleasant, dedicated on January 29, 2019, and located adjacent to the Ports Authority's premier container terminal, the Wando Welch Terminal, and it really is a world-class building. If you've ever had a chance to see it, we're very proud of that. Jim Newsom is most proud of his 37-year marriage to Kathy, their 2 children, Rachel and Matthew, and 2 grandchildren, Amelia and Nathan. And whereas Jim Newsom leaves behind a great legacy as the 5th leader in the history of the South Carolina Ports Authority, now therefore I, Will Haney, Mayor of the town of Mount Pleasant, do hereby proclaim today, July 12, 2022, as James I. Newsom III Day in the town of Mount Pleasant on behalf of our council and all of our citizens, and we extend our appreciation for your many years of service. Thank you. I told Jim he does not have to make a speech, but he would like to say it. Yeah, I want to say it. Please do.
Well, certainly, Mayor Haney, Council, this is very much appreciated by my wife Kathy and I personally, as we've been residents of Mount Pleasant, proud residents of Mount Pleasant since we moved here in September 2009. And professionally, really, I accept this really on behalf of our entire maritime community, which is about 10,000 people. Gary Santos is certainly an integral part of that. You don't do anything alone in life, and we've done all this as a team. One of the most transformational things that we did was to move our office to Mount Pleasant. We were kind of dislocated downtown. We needed to be near really what is the 2nd largest single container terminal on the east coast of the United States, which is the Wando Terminal. And so getting out there was just transformational for our culture, for our workforce and things of that nature. It's really enabled us to grow. So we're very grateful. You encouraged us every step of the way. You've been very welcoming. Eric is there. I mean, everything that we could have possibly asked you did. And I also would mention to you that you may know, and I mentioned it to Mayor Haney, the largest container line in the world, Mediterranean Shipping Company, has their largest U.S. office in Mount Pleasant, and they're growing by leaps and bounds now, over 500 people. So I think a lot of that's all related together. And certainly personally, and for my wife and I, living in Mount Pleasant has been great. We lived in the Tides for most of our time here, and now we live in Carolina Walk townhomes. It's a great town. Y'all have done a wonderful job. I'm very grateful for the quality of the community, and I know that my colleague Jordy, who is here with us and interacts with y'all frequently, we're just very grateful to be in Mount Pleasant, very grateful for your support. And I'm just touched by this recognition. It means a whole lot to me. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. All right, item 4B is recognition of South Carolina School Resource Officer of the Year. Chief Arnold.
Here, come on. Come stand next to me. Mayor and council members, tonight we have an opportunity to recognize as one of our SROs who was selected by the South Carolina Association of School Resource Officers as the School Resource Officer for the year for the state of South Carolina. So just a little bit background. The association was developed by 23 officers in 1996. They recognized the need for a professional organization within the state to address the unique challenges of school resource officers. Each summer, the association holds training and provides valuable updates for school resource officers. Additionally, they recognize an SRO from each of the 4 regions of the state and one statewide SRO for excellence. This year, and the recognitions nominations can come from the police department, they can come from the school or a citizen. And this year, James B. Edwards, kindergarten teacher, Ashley Pompicelli, nominated SRO Ransom Walters for SRO of the Year. I'd like to share with you just a little bit from her nomination letter. Officer Ransom, as we call him, makes sure to know every child by name. He spends time in every grade level each day talking not only about safety, but mentoring children and everyday life skills, from decision-making to impulse control to tying a shoe. If there is ever a need anywhere around the school, he is always a helping hand. If that means covering a classroom while waiting for a substitute teacher to arrive. In a recent interview in News 4, Officer Ransom described his role as a Swiss Army knife of the school. He was awarded the agency's School Resource Officer of the Year for his tireless work in making the relationship between the police department and the community youth stronger. If there's ever anything anyone needs, Ransom usually has it or knows where to get it from the school. From handing out gift cards to helping Costco with their annual Pack the Pantry, feeding over 100 families during Christmas holiday season, Officer Ransom is always there in the community, even when not called upon. He will randomly show up at community centers or youth sporting events and activities, and is known to throw the impromptu popsicle party or cookout. He's part of the Student Improvement Council, which is an advisory board of the principal that's made up by parents, teachers, and community members. This council brings concerns and needs of the school community to the table to be discussed. He runs a lunch mentoring group for young males of single-parent households. He assists the principal in running the Student Ambassador Program. He not only coaches the JBE basketball team, but he also coaches football, basketball, and track at Lucy Beckham High School. Officer Ransom is a consummate professional. If you were to ask any student, any staff member, parent, volunteer, visitor, if he's deserving of this award, 100% of them would say yes. And I agree completely. So, Ransom, thank you for being awesome.
Wow.
All right? Thank you.
And Seaman just keeps getting better. Item C is recognition of longevity awards. Mr. Gurd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Appreciate you giving me this opportunity to recognize Jimmy Millar. If you can come up here. 25 years of service, dedicated service to the town. Thank you. Jimmy. All right, Jimmy. Jimmy isn't just an employee of the town in the recreation department. He truly is a product of the department and the town. He grew up in the recreation department playing sports. He served as a coach for several years, sharing his just vast and overwhelming, inspiring knowledge of football with the younger generation. And I know a lot of people appreciated that. He probably had a good 20 years of involvement in the recreation department before he was officially hired as a recreation specialist of the Darby Building in 1997. He worked there providing programs and special events when he was promoted to recreation coordinator, where he took charge of the tennis program in 2000, and he played an important role in Mount Pleasant and the Charleston area being recognized as a best tennis town in America recipient in 2010. Jimmy was later promoted to athletic division chief in 2012 and into his current position as deputy director in 2017. He is an outstanding leader within the department. He is knowledgeable, productive, loyal, and respected amongst his peers. His leadership and professional approach toward his work have made him a significant impact on the department and the quality of life of our residents for many years. Thank you, Jimmy, for 25 years of dedicated service to the town. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, also Jimmy, I think, was the first state champion, had the first state champion middle school football program for the town of Mount Pleasant, right? Yeah, he coached the team, one over there at Wando High School. Good job.
I think that concludes the longevity awards. Item 5, approval of the minutes from the June 14th.
Move for approval of all listed.
All right. We have a motion to approve the minutes from June 14th Town Council meeting, the 14th and the July 5th special Town Council meetings, and the May 2022 financial statement.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Item 6 is public comment. If you have a public comment, please come forward, give your name and address. You have 2.5 minutes. And if you are addressing an item on the agenda, we would ask at the start if you would tell us which item you are addressing. It's not a requirement, but it just helps us keep our notes straight. All right, Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have 7 citizens signed up to speak this evening. The first is Nathan Bailey.
Hi, I'm Nathan Bailey at 320 Seaport Lane, right across the way here at Rivers Walk Apartments. Beautiful place, love Mount Pleasant. I'm with Congresswoman Nancy Mace's office. Just wanted to give some announcements from our office for the town here. Service Academy nominations are open for applications. Our interview process will go from now until the end of October, and then we hope to have decisions out for all aspiring young officers by the end of the year. We also have a congressional app challenge that we've just launched. This is the second year that the Congress has done this. Our first year doing it. It's for middle school and high school students to team up and create an awesome app for iOS or Android. And we have a panel of judges from cybersecurity experts from all over the region who judge that app. And then awards are handed out, and that comes with a free trip for the students and the parents to DC to get the word out for the app. We also want to just make everybody aware again of our constituent service. Our caseworkers here, excellent team. They can assist with any issues with the IRS or passport agencies or Social Security. And last item of business is any grants that anyone needs assistance with in the town can always come to our office for a letter of support. And thank you. That's all I got.
Lee Gasly.
Good evening, Lee Gasly with Seaman Whiteside and Associates, 1881 Capri Drive, Charleston. I'm here tonight for item A3 on the planning and new business agenda, and just available to answer any questions should you have any when that item comes up on the agenda. Thank you.
Bill Ennis.
Good evening. I'm Bill Ennis. I am the president of the Low Country Tennis Association. In 2018, the town of Mount Pleasant had 900 active tennis players registered with the LCTA. In 2021, Mount Pleasant had 1,400 active tennis players registered with the LCTA. I look at data from all over the country. We've never seen anything like it. We've never seen the growth that you've had in terms of the explosiveness of tennis players that you have here. In 2022, this year, we had 1,700, so we grew another 300 active tennis players. Now, Mount Pleasant Rec is beyond capacity. We can't schedule teams going forward. They go lateral versus horizontal. And in 2023, it's going to be even bigger. We're going to have probably 2,000 active players in Mount Pleasant, more than double from 2018. And in that period of time, Mount Pleasant has not added one tennis court for those tennis players. And it also has one of the lowest citizens to court ratios in the state of South Carolina. So Mount Pleasant desperately needs more tennis court capacity. Tennis, it promotes fellowship, healthiness, longevity, especially for our youth, especially for our older citizens. So I'm here tonight as someone who just loves the game and just says, please hear our concerns. Please take a significantly more proactive stance at enhancing the health and the happiness of your citizens by allotting more capital through the various bills, budgets, an important one that's coming up tonight, and we appreciate that. I also want to give a shout out to Haley at the Mount Pleasant Tennis Center. She is the most extraordinary individual that I work with the number of people all over the Low Country, And I also want to thank you as well, because I know you have difficult decisions to make on a daily basis here. And I know that you have to prioritize, and I hope that you'll consider this as a priority. Thank you.
George Freeman.
Good evening. George Freeman, 1450 Bowman Road. I believe all of you know that I served on the settlement task force. And as a member of that task force, I'm here tonight to make a request because it's been some time since we had that task force. And as far as I know, there has been no decision on whether the council has accepted the recommendations that the task force made or not. If I'm in error, somebody please correct me, but if you haven't, we would please like to know or have a decision made on the requests, on the recommendations that were made by the task force. Thank you.
Ricky Waters.
Good evening, Mayor Haney, Town Council members, Ricky Waters, Bowman Consulting, 880 Island Park Drive, Charleston. I'm here tonight to talk about A2, the approval of impact assessment and conceptual plan for the properties located at 3236 North Highway 17. And just more specifically to speak about the conditions that have been put forward by both Planning Commission and the Planning Committee. We provided a little bit more documentation prior to the meeting for your consideration. One of the recommendations was, recommendations so far have been to approve just with some conditions. And one of the conditions was to stick to the 100-foot buffer requirement along Highway 17. And in your packet, you'll notice there's an exhibit that highlights the different buffers along 17 adjacent to these properties and how for the commercial, retail, neighboring properties, it is 50 foot. So we'd ask council to approve that buffer reduction of 50 foot. There's also been concern about proposed pet paradise use, which is a world-class pet resort for both short and long-term boarding. And one of the issues and concerns is about noise. And of their 47 locations in the country, they have not had any formal noise complaints. They're extremely well-managed and operated facilities that really work hard to be a good neighbor to those properties surrounding them. And then the last condition came up at Planning Committee related to All-American Boulevard, which is a planned road project that bisects Life Park Church and is going to provide some connectivity along 17. And there was a recommendation that a portion of that be built as part of this project. And we just asked council to consider that that is a planned and either fully or partially funded project, and that the request didn't seem justified for that reason, that it was already a planned project that would provide connectivity not only for these properties, but the properties surrounding the surrounding area. So again, Ricky Waters here to answer any questions if you have any when you get to this item. Thank you very much.
Tommy Dinkins.
Hello. Tommy Dinkins, 1612 Florentia Street. I'm here on behalf of Midtown Town homeowners, or the majority of them, I think. We are here again today to reference Gather Mount Pleasant and our community. As you all may know, there's a pending BOZA appeal. It was first heard in May. It was remanded. It's being heard again on the 25th of this month. At that first hearing, they did state that a covenant agreement would be required by the developer and obviously our HOA in order for them to move forward with final approvals. So unfortunately, we do not know right now if a covenant agreement has been entered into. Our HOA is still run by the builder, Lennar. They have not been very forthcoming with many things. So the first part of our request tonight is going to be to plead with the town that you do not approve or enter into any covenant agreement between our townhomes and Gather Mount Pleasant. This agreement would prevent homeowners from parking right in front of their own homes during Gather's normal business hours, which we believe to be 6 days a week. 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on most days. This would prove catastrophic for our neighborhood. At any given time, on off hours, it's 50% capacity with parking spots. During normal hours, it's fully booked. You have no space to park anywhere. So the second part of our request, however, is that we have been informed there's a pending zoning amendment that the developer, Matt Cross, submitted on behalf of his development. as we understand it, which it may not be correct, is that he's asking for an additional parcel to be added to the PD. If that happens, then he has sufficient land to add his parking, and he won't need the covenant agreement. That's what we hope. It would be a moot point at that time. So what we're actually asking here today is that you guys actually approve that amendment to zoning and allow that additional parcel so that he can keep his parking on his own property, while we are still working to coexist with this massive commercial project, and try to compromise on some things that would go a long way to show some effort. And rather than having a bunch of people stand up and say the exact same thing, if you're with Midtown Townhomes and you agree with my request, please stand. Thank you very much.
Perry Rourke.
Good evening, Perry Rourke, 2004 Brick Hill Parkway. I want to thank the members of the Health, Recreation, and Events Committee and Council for getting the approval finally for the Recreation Advisory Commission. Tonight, I'd also ask that you please support the referendum and let's get it put to the ballot in November so we can get the money much needed to improve our recreational facilities in this town. And I don't think it's any better way than sending it to the ballot and letting the residents decide if that's what they want to do. So I'll just ask that you please support that tonight. And I think between the formation of the commission and also if we can get this referendum on the ballot and get it approved, it's going to be some great things for the recreation experience for the residents in this town. Thank you.
That's all I have, sir.
That's it. Is there anyone who did not sign up? Please give name and address.
Good evening. My name is Mac Cross, 1496 Goblet Avenue. And as Ms. Dinkins referenced, I am the applicant for the PD amendment for the Midtown amendment, Midtown PD amendment, and also the developer of Gather MTP or Gather Mount Pleasant. Just one comment tonight. The ordinance states, and there was some discussion about this at Planning Committee about limiting all access to Hungry Neck Boulevard with this PD amendment. And I just ask that you consider not doing that. What we plan to propose is a right-in, right-out onto Hungry Neck. And I believe that complies with the traffic in the overlay area, which is, restricting access on Hungry Neck without limiting it altogether. We plan to have access from that piece of property through the Gather MTP parcel as well. And one other thing I just want to mention is that look forward to continue working with the town homeowners and Ms. Dinkins on finding acceptable solutions to some of their concerns, especially parking. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else before we close public comment? All right. Thank you all very much. This moves us to item number 7, which is consent agenda items.
Move for approval of all consent agenda items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. That would be items A, B, and C under item 7. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Consent agenda items are approved.
Final reading of consent agenda items A, B, and C.
This moves us to section 8, planning new business. Ms. Reed, please.
Thank you, Mayor.
Move to
Council
approve.
members.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. If there's no other discussion, I have a question. It answered my question when I saw this at the committee the other day was, does this help or hurt our citizens who are concerned about this amendment to the PD? And I think we heard the answer tonight, and I'll ask the committee members, that is a yes. Is that right? That by passing this, including this, it does help those residents. Okay. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
First reading, ordinance number 22046.
Item 2, please.
Okay. This next one is an impact assessment for North Highway 17. I
think y'all are familiar with these parcels. They came through in 2019. They were annexed in and zoned AB, Area Wide Business District. As you can see here, it's all in orange. There is one parcel that remains in the county, which I'll speak to in just a moment. So it is 8 parcels, surrounded by Life Park Church. We have Lowe's at Oakland across the street, and then we have residential to the back there, which is Ivy Hall neighborhood. It is recommended for community scale commercial. And as I said, in 2019, they were annexed in. There was an attempt to zone to AB2 at one point. That was denied. When this came in as AB, the zoning was in place, and it was always intended for the tennis facility and some supporting uses. Over the last couple of years, we've seen several attempts to do different types of uses, whether it's retail, commercial, hotel, different things. So what's before you tonight is the request to include office, commercial, obviously the recreational uses, medical, and then the pet boarding facility. And then, of course, the tennis courts, pickleball courts, and then an amenity center associated with that. So just a little bit about an impact assessment. As you see here, it's going to be the total development, 70,000 square feet. For an impact assessment, some of you may have not seen one yet. We don't get them very often anymore, but when you have a development that has at least 40,000 square foot of non-residential and 75 peak hour trips, you're required to do an impact assessment. And the reason for that is really to address things holistically. All these uses are permitted, so if the pet facility came in and wanted to locate, it could. The tennis facility could come in. But we put this in place so that we recognize the impacts as an entire development. So instead of phasing it in, we want to look at it through a comprehensive approach. And primarily that's to look at drainage, traffic, and those sorts of things. The impact assessment is associated with a conceptual plan, which we'll show in a minute. But this was required to go through the town's design review team. The DRT team was satisfied with the impact assessment. We had a few things we wanted to bring to the attention of the commission and the committee, and it was recommended for approval with a few conditions, which I'll get to in just a minute. So, as I said, this is the breakdown of the proposed uses. It does exceed that 40,000 square foot, which met the requirement for an impact assessment. And this is the layout of what it's going to look like. It's going to be 2 phases. So you can see phase 1 will be the pet facility and then the retail village, which would front Highway 17. And then phase 2 would be the racket facility and then some medical offices back here. This residential access, that property I pointed out at the beginning that is still hatched, is still in the county. So one of our comments that was recommended for approval with a condition is that we haven't really been involved with how they're going to access that. So we want to make sure before there's any building permits issued that we have a plan of how the property owner at Bryant Court that remains in the county is going to have their access. This is the impact fees that were associated with the plan. Our transportation department did look at everything and confirmed that this was accurate. So this is what this development would be bringing in to the town. The developer has been made aware of the option of constructing a portion of All-American Boulevard in lieu of paying some of these impact fees. You can see the total amount. As was mentioned by one of the public comments, the All-American Boulevard is programmed for FY 2024. It's about a $1.2 million project. And so I think our transportation director mentioned it at the committee meeting, but it's really going to come down to timing as to whether or not, but it is an option and it's something that the developer will continue to talk to with the town. Here's a layout of All-American Boulevard. So you can see we have Life Park Church over here, and then we have Mellow Mushroom and those offices over there, and then we have our development here. So this is what they're proposing for their access. That access, which is a dirt road now to Joe Bryant Court, would be their primary access. SEDOT does not have any objections to this access. However, it will be incumbent upon the developer to install a right turn lane for the southbound US 17 approach, and there is the potential for the intersection to be signalized, but this is pending a traffic signal warrant analysis. So that would be forthcoming. And then they're proposing 3 access points to All-American Boulevard that you can see here. And the next point we wanted to make, so the first one was that residential access. We want to make sure that that's planned for and that we have a plan. We know that how that gentleman's going to get access before there's a building permit issued. The second one that we talked about is this area is in what's called the natural roadside buffer. It requires in our ordinance a 100-foot buffer. But the ordinance says that the buffer may be reduced through the planning process. This is the planning process for this particular development. If it were just going to the design review board, it would be under their purview. And so staff recommended the 100-foot natural roadside buffer remain in place. We did want to show adjacent. So there's the 50-foot buffer down here, and that was provided by Mellow Mushroom in that area because they dedicated part of their land to All-American Boulevard. The Church at Life Park has a 100-foot buffer. Up here we have 50. And then the Taco Bell and the Lowe's at Oakland, they have a 50-foot, and then the remaining Oakland here has a 100-foot buffer. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the buffers are. And those have all been reduced by some board or commission, whether it's DRB or town council through the PD amendments. So staff recommended that it remain a 100-foot buffer. Both the commission and the committee also recommended that it stay a 100-foot buffer, but there is the option to have that reduced to 50 feet. And then last but not least, we want to bring to the attention the conditional use of the pet daycare. This is a permitted use. The zoning is in place. So if they were to come in, as I said previously, and apply to build this use there, they would be able to do it. However, because we're looking at it from the impact assessment standpoint, there is an opportunity to apply other conditions within reason. So at the commission level and at the committee level, it was decided that they really needed to look at moving some of the outdoor kennel further away from the church. There were concerns from folks from the church. So what they did do between commission and committee was flip that. So this previously was over here. They've moved it to the other side. We've got the pond, and then we've got a 10-foot buffer and that remaining wooded area. So that was proposed. They've also not only changed the siding, but they also have enhanced architectural improvements, which they submitted to you all through written correspondence. I would say that to site it to any other location would be difficult from a staff perspective because we do have that residence remaining in the county, and then if you go further west, you do have a neighborhood. So it's something to consider as we continue to look at that. So again, the recommendations from Planning Commission and Committee were to install the 100-foot buffer, continue to explore options for better siting, and then be required to construct a portion of All-American Boulevard to connect with Life Park Church.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
I'm on the planning committee, as some of you know, and we really need to understand this is a much better project than we've seen previously, which was a car dealership. Having said that, there are things we need to do to make sure that the impact on Highway 17, as well as the neighborhoods and the churches, are all considered. I was very strong in the point that we need to make sure that All-American Boulevard gets built as part of this. And the reason being is that we're not dumping all of the traffic from this project onto 17, one of the most critical and most heavily trafficked areas in our town. So that's where the requirement, I guess, from the committee came to have All-American Boulevard finished as part of this. I'm concerned about the proximity of the pet facility with the church. I'm not sure that I know all the answers. I would like to see it moved a little further away, but I understand we can't impact a residence. We can't impact worse a neighborhood. There is a pet facility right next to the post office, if anybody has been by there for any length of time, and it gets pretty loud. So all I'm saying is I would like to explore whatever we can to improve the conditions for this church. Finally, I think they've done a good job with the circulation for the project. I'm in favor of approving the impact statement, but those issues that I've mentioned, I think need to be specified. The 100-foot buffer is certainly something we need to maintain. So having said that, with those specifics that have been delineated, I'm going to vote for approval.
Ms. Corley.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the planning department did a great job of laying this out to us during committee Monday. They addressed everything in a really comprehensive way. They addressed traffic, water usage. I think that especially the racket piece of this, we've been asking for private industry to get involved with our athletics. So this is great and super positive. And also the kennel. And I feel better knowing that this company has never had a noise complaint. That makes me feel way better about the project. So yes, I'm supporting this.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to confirm, Ms. Reed, that the support of the All-America Boulevard would be in lieu, so this 1.1 million in impact fees would then be directed towards construction of that road rather than, it's not an added burden to the developer, is it?
It could be used. All-America Boulevard is already programmed. It's already funded. It's planned to be constructed in '24 at a cost of 1.2 million. It's an option for the developer to pay to construct the road in lieu of paying those fees. But I know that our transportation department is talking to them about that, and it's really, I think Brad mentioned at committee, it's going to come down to timing of when they're ready to start constructing versus when it's time for us to start doing it. So, but it's really kind of something that they're going to have to work out with our transportation department.
So would our vote in this matter then make this a requirement of them, or is this just something, or this is just a factor that they'll be negotiating?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, we don't require that. Next year in our budget, we'll have the final funding piece for All-America Boulevard. So whether this amount of money is directed specifically towards this project or falls right into our general impact fee for transportation is of no difference.
See, that's what I'm wondering, is this even, if the project is already funded and this $1.1 million can come into our general fund versus go to, if the project's already funded, why is it necessary? So that's why I'm wondering about that sort of third piece as to why, if All-America Boulevard is planned for construction anyway, I don't know why we would make that a condition of approving this impact.
If the payment comes in earlier, then we expect to have the money available with the next budget cycle, and it will allow us to start the project earlier, then we would ask you to direct the money so we can get started earlier on the project. But as far as making it a condition of where the money is sent, in my opinion, I don't think that's a requirement right now.
And is that how the motion is currently constructed?
That was a condition that came out of committee. Was that included in the motion?
Pretty sure. Didn't you amend that?
Yes, and I'll try to answer that. I want to make sure that when this project opens up, especially since they're doing the commercial part first, that we have All-American Boulevard finished. That's the reason I made that request, because the commercial activity is going to be the largest part of the traffic. That we need that traffic to go to All-American Boulevard, not onto 17. It's going to go on 17 some. We know that onto Joe Bryant. but the ability to have All-American Boulevard available when the commercial, which is what they want to do first, is open, that's critical.
I see. So if we were to approve this impact as, the motion as made, there's a possibility that that could speed up the development of Alameda Boulevard? Is that my understanding? Because the funding would be here
It
a
depends.
budget year sooner?
I'm not sure we can make such an approval contingent upon that. I mean, in my mind, we're 2 years out on the construction of All-America Boulevard. It'll take another year, another budget cycle for the remaining money, and at least a year to construct. And so, but I'm not sure that, if I understood the comments correctly, I'm not sure council can condition approval for the project on the town's execution of the road project.
I'm not conditioned on the town, I'm conditioned on the developer doing it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I guess I think maybe I have a little bit more simple of a mind. So basically, if they cut the check for the 1.1 million and we haven't cut the check for the 1.1 million, we'll just direct that money towards the road, and the road will start sooner.
I think still don't think that's the case. I think
I mean,
we're out more than 1.2
we're not making it
million.
conditioned, right?
That wouldn't cover the construction.
Right. It's just not a condition though, which is fine. So it's
We're
tit for tat.
3.2 million. Right.
Mayor.
Mr. Pagliarini, I have a quick question. We don't see many of these. This is not only, I mean, we're not voting on an annexation or a zoning. We're voting on an impact assessment, and it says conceptual plan.
Yes.
So can you help us understand, because I know I need it, if we approve a conceptual plan, what are we actually saying? And then what happens if, there's a whole phase 2 on this, and as we know from the last 2 years of life, from everything to, what's the new thing, monkeypox? Pandemic, monkeypox, $5. Things can change, and 3 of us were here when this came in 3 years ago, and it was all going to be a tennis center, and as you said, Ms. Reed, supporting buildings, and now we're looking at 70,000 square feet of office and retail, and the tennis is not even in that phase. So when we approve something that says conceptual plan, I need a better idea of what I'm voting on.
Yes, Mayor, Council, good evening. There are 2 separate and distinct elements which are taken together here, and that's certainly fine. Our impact, just as a general matter, our impact assessment is governed by 156.054. I sent all that to you, and that, as Ms. Reed mentioned, relates to impacts, more trips. And as she said, staff found that the impact assessment was acceptable. Mayor, to your question, the conceptual plan, this is really a guide. Conceptual plan is not always a final version. There are several things that could happen in between. As Ms. Reed mentioned, any approval is going to go through several boards, commissions, depending on what is being asked. But this is a general layout, and appropriate layout for a project of this size that council is granted a significant amount of discretion. So in this, and again, just for council's benefit, we're not talking about use. These are permitted uses. We're more talking about the layout in layman's terms, what is best where, and a transportation element is a component of that. So what you'd be approving is a general concept subject to further planning. There's a whole lot that has to happen between now and construction, engineering and the like, utilities, all of those various things, but this is the starting point.
Okay. And while I still have the floor, if you were at the planning committee meeting on Tuesday of last week, someone from the church did come and speak with concerns about the kennel. And I'll just play my hand. I have real concerns about approving this under these circumstances. Any others before we vote? Yes, ma'am.
I just don't think that we should be requiring the developer to build a small section of All-America. I guess I'm just not understanding. If they just build, it's an $8 million project to do that full extension. And if we're requiring them to just build the frontage road along their property, that's not solving anything. Like, that doesn't create the connectivity that the entire project would do and is planned to do in 2024. So I would actually move to amend the motion to remove the requirement of construction of the road.
All right, we have a motion to amend what came from the committee, which would require the developer to, what wording are we using that? The developer to build it?
Right, like, so I would like to remove the condition that the developer be required to construct the All-America Boulevard to connect with Life Park Church.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second, so we are in discussion. Any discussion? Yes, sir, Ms. Santos.
Just want to make sure I understand that. The original, what we're looking at here on the staff summary, requires to construct a portion of All-American Boulevard to connect with Life Church, requires a developer. You're saying that you don't think the developer should do that?
Yes, because this is already a budgeted and planned for $8 million project to connect the full All-America Boulevard all the way along the path. And I think that requiring the developer to construct just one small portion of the road is maybe even disruptive and to the greater project that is there. And I would rather the $1.1 million in impact fees just go into our general fund for any sort of impacts.
So I guess I'll look at staff and say, what do y'all think about that?
Well, they're paying, the plan you're looking at shows them paying 1.1 million in impact fees. So we have the project ready. We've been saving up the money for years. One more slot of money is all we need. It's permitted. We're ready to go soon. It's almost better off. I think the word disruptive is a good one. That amount of money they're paying in impact fees, we just take it and apply it to other projects.
Okay, so you don't have a problem with this then?
Well, they're paying 1.1 million in transportation impact fees. So
Okay.
if we're comfortable, which we are at the staff level, having the money available and programmed, then we'll use that money and put it towards some other project
Okay.
that you believe is a priority. Yep.
Okay, good.
Okay, we're first voting on the proposed amendment to the primary motion. So all in favor of the amendment as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
We have one no. All right. So now we have, is there any further discussion? So the amendment passes. Is there further discussion on the proposal to approve the impact assessment and conceptual plan? Any discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. So 8-1, it passes. All right. That moves us to item number 3, which is a request for approval of a waiver.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. May we ask either legal or staff what what this is based on?
He's been blocked. I'll answer. They applied. We have been working with the group that owns it, BMOC. We've been working with them to amend this PD and clean it up. It's been kind of a mess for a long time, and we felt like the best way to do that was through a plan development ordinance. They put together a PD ordinance. They submitted it for our June Planning Commission. We advertised it. And then they had some changes in leadership, and they thought it was going to change some of the things in their PD amendment, the vision that they were going with a couple of their uses. One of them is called Modern Minds, provides counseling, psychiatric counseling, and those sorts of things. So they wanted to put it on hold. They didn't want to go through that exercise and bring it to you all if there was going to be changes. And after you advertise for a public hearing, if you don't move forward and you pull it, it's treated the same as a denial. And so it was the best choice to make so that we were able to meet, they were able to meet with their leadership, figure out what changes needed to be made. They met with staff. We have a process moving forward, and now they need a waiver so they can reapply and make this the whole development of PD ordinance, and it'll come back to you in that fashion.
Okay.
So.
All right. Is that clear? We had a motion to approve in a second. All right, all in favor?
Discussion, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Further discussion?
This property is in a zoned residential area. Is that not correct?
Some of it's residential, some of it is office professional.
Right. So there's, some of it is currently residential. This project, or what they want to do, has not come to the planning committee. We have not seen it at planning committee. I'm deeply concerned because of where it is. It's at the corner of basically Lucy Beckham High School, Mathis Ferry, Whipple Road. That whole area, which with Lucy Beckham now having seniors this coming school year, is a problem. It's a problem. What they have done on this site is commendable. They've reduced the number of access points on Mathis Ferry. Their only access is at a traffic signal. It really looks good. What they've done looks nice. The buffer looks good. But having not seen it at all before we approve it at committee level, I would request that it be deferred and be brought to planning committee so we can see what's planned there.
Mr. Chapman, this is, the committee didn't see it because they withdrew it. So what, and when you withdraw a request that has to go for a public hearing, you're required to wait 1 year to reapply. So this request is just so that they can reapply, and if it's approved, they'll reapply and they'll go to the August Planning Commission, and then they'll come to the committee in September. So you will see it. They just need this waiver so that they can reapply and not wait for 1 year.
Any other discussion, any comments? The motion is to approve, and this is the waiver, only the waiver, not the project. All in favor of the motion to grant the waiver, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
2 noes? Okay, 7-2. All right, that concludes new business. Section B is old business. Item number 1, the applicant has withdrawn the request. And that concludes planning. Section 9 is committee action items. There are no committee action items. Section 10 is council business, new business. The first one is from the Police, Judicial, and Legal Committee, and that has to do with rewording about the composition of the Commercial Design Review Board requirements. Mr. Paglioni, I'll let you, since that's your good work. Our committee did recommend approval of this.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an ordinance to amend our zoning code specifically related to our Commercial Design Review Board requirements. This change would provide more discretion to council in appointing members with certain technical backgrounds. So, for example, in the existing provision, it was required that we have a landscape architect, an architect, and a professional engineer. This would prioritize those requirements. Obviously, we want our DRB to have some sort of technical expertise. However, we have had, to some extent, problems in filling those specific slots. So this would just broaden the language and allow perhaps other technical folks to sit in on one of these seats. It's just not mandated.
Right. And at the committee, we wanted the wording, which you see there now. It says priority instead of saying we should or we shall or whatever. We didn't want there to be any misinterpretation, but I think we all agree that it's better to have qualified, willing people on there than it is to have vacant seats because we don't have somebody who is a registered landscape architect or one of
Move
those
to
others.
approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion to approve, second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
First reading, ordinance number 22047.
All right, item number 2 has to do with the Economic Development Committee. Ms. Hyatt, if you'd like to take that one.
See,
Sorry, repeal
is-
chapter 117.
Yes.
Yes.
An ordinance to repeal and replace Chapter 117 of Economic Development Incentives Program of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances. We were just working on the our incentives. And were you going to explain anything? Yeah, you might want to come and discuss what. Yes.
If you go
Thank
ahead
you.
and
What
make the
we were.
motion, please. Well, it's
Okay,
from
we'd
committee.
like to move to approve.
Second.
All right.
Thank you.
I can provide a brief explanation. So this evening for your consideration is an ordinance revising our Economic Development Incentive Program. One of the goals outlined in the ED strategy that we adopted earlier this year was to revise the ordinance to focus our incentive program on the 5 target industries in that plan and within the key economic development zones in that plan. Another goal was to outline a program to expedite permitting for any ED projects, and this ordinance accomplishes both of those things. In addition, the revisions strengthen the program with respect to our return on investment, and they incorporate some additional objectives from the strat plan to include housing and transportation. And this was reviewed by the ED committee and recommended for approval.
Move
All
to
right.
approve.
Yeah.
Done?
We have-
We don't have-
we have-
all right.
we have-
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
I'm good. Oh, I'm blocked. Thank you. The thing about economic development is it's extremely important, obviously, to the town, and I appreciate the work that you all did on that and for Ms. Hyatt chairing that. The one thing I do want to remember during this is although economic development is the anchor, that we've got to ensure that we are surrounding that economic development with the small businesses. So hopefully from this point, economic development will be able to work with finance to help those small businesses out on impact fees and things of that sort, so that we can ensure that once we do get those anchor tenants, that we're able to surround it with small businesses, restaurants, and the like. So I hopefully after this we'll be able to work with finance and the economic development committee to also not only encourage economic development in those businesses that the staff will bring, that we also support the small businesses in this venture. So, thank you. Good work, thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
We have one no, okay? Sorry, who was that now? Mr. Rambo.
First reading, ordinance number 22048.
All right, that moves us to item number 3. We have a motion to approve and a second. This is authorizing a memorandum of agreement between the Town of Mount Pleasant Police, Charleston County School District, East Cooper Montessori School, Oceanside Collegiate Academy to provide school resource officers. This obviously was unanimously endorsed by the committee. Any discussion?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Who would I answer? Who would I direct that to you?
Well, or it depends, I guess, the nature.
I hate Mars. So we split the cost with Charleston County for our SROs. And is there a number? Like, do we know what number is that?
Do you recall, Chief or Marcy?
Yes, sir. Approximately 45% of the cost of the officer is borne by the schools. And the officer serves 180 days approximately with the school district. And the town picks up the other equipment, uniforms, and vehicles.
And would you happen to know if the school district gets funding for SROs from the state?
It is our belief, we've not been able to identify specifically how much they're getting, but we know that the state has given schools funding for the SROs.
And our residents are going to pay for it either way, whether to Charleston County taxes or through Mount Pleasant taxes. I just have always wondered why that's going through our budget and not theirs, and why we can't send them a bill. It's still taxpayer dollars, I get that, but just, be good to get clarity on that sometime, maybe. All right, thank
Okay.
you.
And just to clarify too, this is just the memorandum of agreement. This is not the funding aspect of that. This is just making it possible for us to enter into that arrangement.
Oh, I see, okay.
All right? It's a good question, though. Certainly agree with that. All right, are we prepared to vote? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Resolution 22071.
All right, that concludes council new business, council old business. Item number 1 came from Police, Judicial, and Legal, an ordinance to amend Section 30.36 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances entitled Public Comments at Town Meetings. This would specify 2.5 minutes, and it also says that the mayor or chairperson, if it's a committee that you're chairing, may prioritize comments from those who are commenting on a published agenda item. This is not a mandatory thing. This does not mean, and I know other councils have said you can only address something that's on the agenda, but we've had some recent experiences where we've had 10, 12 people come and speak about something that's not on the agenda, and they're perfectly free to do that, and we'll be under this. We just don't want, if somebody is between work and home and feeding their kids and an item important that's going to be voted on that affects them or their neighborhood that night, we want the folks that are here for something that we're going to take action on that night to go first. The same way we do that, we prioritize people who sign in, go before those who didn't sign in, but everybody still gets to speak. And that's just so that you don't come and miss your opportunity because you have to make a choice between addressing this council or picking your child up from practice. That's all that's.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend this to 3 minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to amend this to 3 minutes, and we have a second. Discussion? Yes, sir.
I had my timer out today. I know we're in meetings sometimes where people go over and we're asking them to stop, but tonight we had people at 24 seconds, we had people at 2.5 minutes. I think, I think we're going to have people that are going to get up there and ramble and ramble and ramble, and then I think there's other times that people need the 3 minutes, and I believe that in general, people respect our time, and we get one opportunity, I've said this before, for all 9 council members to be here. I don't have to answer emails, I don't have to answer phone calls, and I don't need to meet you for lunch or for a coffee, but I'm guaranteed to be here, hopefully, at 6 o'clock on the second Tuesday of the month. And I think that our citizens deserve the right to speak to us and deserve the right to have their 3 minutes if they so choose. If they so choose to take 24 seconds, great. We'll be out of here earlier, but that's my piece.
Yes, sir. Mr. Santos.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, back in 1998, when I first wrote the ordinance, it was up to 3 minutes. And I think he just described it well. Some people take 20 seconds, some people will take the full 3 minutes. But this is their only opportunity to meet us and talk to us as a group together once a month. And I think the very least we can do is give them up to 3 minutes to be able to tell us what they think. As you see, tonight went pretty fast. We don't always get people who talk 3 minutes. So I think it's a good opportunity, I think, for us to be able to let our citizens have at least 3 minutes once a month to address this whole council. I don't think that's asking too much. So I agree with it. Thanks, John.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Whitley.
So as long as I've been on council, which is coming up on 5 years, it's been 2 minutes for public comment, and this is an additional 30 seconds. The ordinance has been a range of 1 to 3, so conceivably they could have been only given 1 minute, and then up to 3. But the tradition has been 2 minutes for as long as I've been on council, and I think for a much longer time by that. And so this ordinance change, without the amendment, gives an additional 30 seconds for people to finish speaking. And I think that when oftentimes, if there's a contentious issue and there is, 30 or 40 or 50 people signed up to speak on an issue, I think that in the matter of getting through it and having people not here till, all like midnight. I think 2 minutes and 30 seconds gives plenty of opportunity to speak to an item on the agenda and speak to everyone here. I don't see the need to go basically a minute jump from 2 to 3 minutes.
since I haven't spoken yet. I agree with that. When I got on council, we had some of the most contentious issues this town has ever had. We had the room full of people. The air was thick. It was 2 minutes then. Everyone spoke for 2 minutes then. It hasn't been until this year that anybody asked for 3 minutes. And one of those, we know how they use those minutes. And the other was very polite and very nice about it. But if we could go through all of the comp plan, if we could go through all of the issues we went through, like the Atlantic, or that we went through with the parking garage, that we went through all of those things in 2 minutes was okay. I think 2.5 minutes is more than we gave citizens by choice, because it could have been 3, but there was no motion from anybody in this body to make it 3 minutes at any of those meetings. And I think your point is very well taken. Mr. Santos.
Yeah, well, as I said, you've not been here that long. 1998 is when we started it, and all throughout those years, it was up to 3 minutes.
And did anyone ask for 3 minutes or speak 3 minutes?
They
during
don't
that
have to
time
ask
frame?
for it. That's what the ordinance calls for. So they all speak to 3 minutes, and when they get to 3 minutes, the parliamentarian will say, okay, that's it, you're up, and they let them know. So the ordinance has always been there, I mean, since 98. So I'm sorry you didn't know that, but that's what it was. Now, maybe they did speak for 2 minutes, or maybe, the mayor said you have 2 minutes, but the ordinance says up to 3 minutes, and I think that's what it should be.
Did you ever make a motion? Did anybody get those 3 minutes through all those years?
Every time we opened it up for our citizens to speak, the former mayors would say you have up to 3 minutes, and that's what would happen. We only started saying 2 minutes just recently, but every other time, and I've been on council for 22 years, so I've heard it for all those years. They would say you have up to 3 minutes because that's what the ordinance says.
It was 2 minutes when I was a council member 7 years ago, just to clarify.
Well, I mean, but the mayor can say 2 minutes if they want, but that doesn't mean it changes the ordinance. The ordinance still says up to 3.
Okay. All right, so we will be voting on the amendment to change it to 3 minutes. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute, clarification. We're voting to change it to 3 minutes?
Well, there's
On
an
your
amendment that we have a primary motion to approve the new ordinance, and this is a secondary motion to change that one portion
Okay,
to 3
I just wanted to make
minutes.
sure. Okay, thank you.
The question I have about the motion, and I guess we need to clarify before we actually vote. This says it will be 2 minutes and 30 seconds, specified. So nobody can make it only 2 and nobody can make it only 1. Under the old ordinance, you could make it 1 or you could make it 2 or 3 or anything in between. So if you're saying 3 here, that means that it is always and only 3. That's the way the motion reads, because it didn't say, this says 2 minutes and 30 seconds will be allowed for each speaker. Is that the intention of your motion?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So we'll just do a roll call vote because I think it's going to be fairly close here. This is on the amendment to approve the amendment.
The amendment is 3, right? Correct.
Is 3, and that is 3 and only 3, according to the way this is worded and the way the amendment was said, without discretion. Yes. Please call the roll.
Mr. Santos.
Aye.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley.
No.
Ms. Whitley votes no. Mr. Chapman.
No.
Mr. Chapman votes no. Ms. Corley.
No.
Ms. Corley votes no. Ms. Hyatt.
No.
Ms. Hyatt votes no. Mr. Iacofano.
Yes.
Mr. Iacofano votes yes. Mr. Rambo.
Yes.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Ritchie.
No.
Mr. Ritchie votes no. Mayor Haney.
No.
Mayor Haney votes no.
So 6-3, the motion fails. Now we go back to the primary motion, which is to approve the ordinance as it was presented. Any further discussion? All right, I guess we'll do a roll call vote on that as well.
Ms. Whitley.
Aye.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Chapman.
Aye.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Ms. Corley.
Yes, aye.
Ms. Corley votes yes. Ms. Hyatt.
Aye.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Mr. Iacofano.
No.
Mr. Iacofano votes no. Mr. Rambo.
Yes.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Ritchie.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie votes yes. Mr. Santos.
No.
Mr. Santos votes no. Mayor Haney.
Yes.
Mayor Haney votes yes.
All right, 7-2, the ordinance is adopted.
Final reading, ordinance number 22044.
This brings us to item number
Move to approve.
2, an ordinance to approve a referendum regarding a proposed tax millage increase to construct and maintain recreation facilities. We have a motion to approve. And we have a second. We are now in discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I,
What's that?
oh, sorry, did you need something? Oh.
Well, we're in discussion, so we can get a secondary motion. Oh, you're.
Oh, okay, there we go. My mic was red. So do we have a motion to approve? Committee did take another look at it and did vote 3-0 to recommend amending the ordinance. The amended version lists all of the same projects. However, it does add the Muggsy Kerr Tennis Complex maintenance, renovation, and expansion of that facility. That's the tennis facility on Whipple Road, as well as cleans up some of the language. For instance, under Park West Pool renovation, it takes out to include like the multipurpose room for meetings and rentals, just to reduce costs in some of those areas. Under Rifle Range Road Park, it takes out the boardwalks, fishing piers, some of those things to reduce costs to make room for the tennis center expansion. And that was a recommendation from committee 3-0, but I guess I have to move to amend. I move to amend the referendum as recommended by the Recreation Committee.
Yes, sir.
Is
That's
that
exactly.
correct?
Second.
Okay.
Okay, let me write this down. Your motion is to amend the recreation referendum as recommended by the committee, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a motion and a second, so we're in discussion. So I think for the sake of clarity and the magnitude of what we're voting on, and this involves, Mr. Parliamentarian, can we hear what those details actually are?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And as they have been presented, they are all part of one motion.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So would somebody on the committee please give us an idea of what all those entail, please? That was a lot.
Oh, I mean, I could read it. Do you have that version, Mr. Pagliarini? Would you be able to go over it?
Perhaps I can help, sir.
Okay.
Could I take that, Martin? Thank you. So, as you stated, Mr. Rambo, the last bullet was added. That is the Kerr Tennis Center complex was added by committee for consideration by council. And what that is about is what you see in front of you, the additional hard surface courts, sidewalks and parking. The current language that you mentioned has been amended starts here with number 1. And if I'm hearing you correctly, I don't have that document in front of me, sir, but it says a multi-purpose facility gymnasium, and it mentions, multi-purpose facility, as I said. It says rectangular fields to provide clarity that it's rectangular fields and not just baseball fields. And then it, to clarify this project, it does not stipulate that many things on here, like the disc golf and the boardwalk and trails and fishing pier. That's number 1.
Okay. So what you said was the recommendation takes out boardwalk, fishing pier, boardwalk, trails, fishing pier?
It doesn't necessarily take it out. It just says it's not a requirement in that construction. And the idea being that, these are my words, the idea being that if 50 million is the cap, that committee, ultimately council, may say that we may need to pull back on Rifle Range Road in order to fund the other priorities. And therefore, if that's the case, then the items that are listed early on in number one would be the ones that the public sees on the ballot, and those would be the items definitely constructed. Other items found in the conceptual plan that y'all have seen before will be reached if funding allows.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand what's in the motion, the boardwalk, the fishing pier, and something else are not required.
Not required.
Disc golf. Was that it? Okay, that's three. That's three. Got it. Got it. I got it. Got it. Okay. All right. So that's on number one.
That's right. Mount Pleasant Way, number two, I don't believe has changed. Number three, Park West Pool, what is removed from here is the requirement to add the additional family restrooms and, nope, that's not it. Where is it? Here it is. The requirement to have the multipurpose room for meetings and rentals.
Okay.
So it's the very last portion of number three.
And that's it on that one.
Yes, sir, correct.
Got it. Okay.
Number four has not changed. And number five is the tennis complex we just mentioned.
Okay. Is everybody clear on what that is? All right. So we had a motion, we had a second, we're in discussion. Anybody? On the amendment, yes. The question that I have that was asked at committee is what does it cost? What is the cost ascribed to the Muggsy Kerr Tennis Complex maintenance, renovation, and expansion? And do we have enough, will we have enough money if this passes at $50 million?
I've got it right here, sir. It's $3.25 million. And so what we would have to do and what we would ask for clarity from council is if it is $50 million, how to break some of these things out. So you have the Rifle Range Road Park, say that's capped at 40, the pool renovation takes you to 43, and then the Muggsy Kerr Tennis Complex takes you to a little over 46. And so that gives a little more than $3 million to be distributed amongst Mount Pleasant Way and the acquisition of green space. So we'd ask for clarity there.
And do you need dollar numbers assigned to those two, or can it just be those two things fall under that remainder bucket?
We do not need dollar amounts.
Thank you.
And so that Rifle Range Road Park, that 40 million includes every single element, and it doesn't take out what could potentially be taken out.
Were you raising? Yes, ma'am. That's cool.
Thank you. I really feel like this referendum, it's all or none. I feel like I think residents need a third choice. Maybe give them an option of, hey, let's go in and spend it's like right now they're going to have to go vote on 50 million, tearing up Rifle Range, or nothing. And I think residents would love a third option of something super small, maybe 2 fields with some parking, gravel parking, and or just looking at other options for taking care of the rec department. But at this, how would we go about that? Like adding a third option to the referendum? Would I have to amend his amendment?
Yes, ma'am. You'd be setting up an either or type scenario. Is that what you're mentioning?
So I'm asking if we can add a third option to the referendum. Does that make sense? So you either say yes to the all-in, or you say no, or you say option B, which is whatever, $4 million to build 2 fields with some gravel to park in.
Yes, sir.
Mayor,
Mr. Pegler, I was hoping you would
My
chime in.
recommendation on that, just for clarity, would be to deal with the amendments one at a time. Unless there was a specific change to the amendment on the floor.
Okay.
What I'm understanding you saying is to provide another option might be a separate amendment.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, what we have is the motion for these changes that have just been delineated.
Okay, let's do it.
That's all I have as chair to work with.
Yes.
I have a question, just a legal question. If this, the way this is worded, the wording of the ordinance, does that mean that that we, the town, spend the money on item number 1 first? That it's an order of priority?
Right.
Right.
Mayor,
Okay. So if a once-in-a-lifetime green space came about and it was $10 million, but it's the last item on the list, and we haven't even started anything on Rifle Range Road yet, would this council or a future council, I guess, have the option of acting on that within the wording of this referendum?
So, correct, Mayor, that the way that this is written is that these are the priorities. But the way that these referenda work are that they are essentially advisory. So council would have the option to do that.
Okay. And the other question I have, because in looking at this, in the very first sentence, it says, special election or referendum for the purpose of obtaining advice from the public to levy a tax. If the referendum passes, has the public raised the taxes, or will this council have to vote to raise the taxes?
Yes, sir. It would come back to council, and then there would have to be an ordinance effectuating the result.
To raise the taxes, the four mills.
Correct.
So the referendum itself does not raise the taxes, the council raises
That's correct, sir.
taxes. Okay. And there is a priority of funding there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes.
But the council's raising the taxes after hearing the voice of the people.
Understand.
Right, okay.
Right.
And
Yes, sir.
Mayor, if I could add, the passage of a referendum by the public allows us to do the millage above and beyond what our normal available taxing authority is. In other words, the public has allowed us to go beyond what ordinarily state law says is the maximum amount we can go out and get money on. So that's why you have a referendum. You have the referendum allowing you to go farther than your normal funding capabilities. And it's more because the public has allowed you to go that much farther.
Okay.
That's the reason you have a public referendum to build projects.
Right. So this is the amendment we are discussing. The amendment has those changes in it. Is there any other discussion on that amendment?
And then it's going to come back.
And then we have to vote on the
Okay.
whole thing, and there will be more discussion
Okay.
on that. All right, we'll try this voice vote. All those in favor of the amendment as delineated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. So it passes by 8-1. All right, so now we are on the referendum question itself,
Mayor, I'd like
which
to
would be
make,
as amended, right? We just amended it.
Unless there are further discussions or amendments.
yeah.
Right.
So that's when
This would be where you would make your amendment if you so choose. So thank you, Mr. Chapman. I was going to ask if you would defer.
you're going to defer. Oh, sorry. So I would like to make an amendment to include a third option of a reduced plan with 2 grass fields, parking, no lights, which would reduce the impact on the current environment and wildlife, which currently inhabit the space. And just to,
To be clear, you're talking about Rifle Range Park.
yes, sir.
Okay.
And can I keep talking or?
Absolutely. You
So
have the floor.
I just want everybody to remember that I think people are getting confused and calling fields green space, but fields are not green space. I think when we talk about green space, we need to think about undisturbed space, space where nobody's mowing that space or putting weed killer or there's noise or lights or pollution. And I really think there's a large population of our residents who would like something just cut back by a lot. And so a third option, I think, would be just the right, I'm not about, I don't think anybody in this council wants to squelch the people's voice and we want to know what they think, but I think a third option would be respectful of our residents.
So the question I have before we get a second or anything is, if what was just done, are you amending the amendment?
I thought it was amending the motion for.
My understanding is amending the main motion.
The main
Just Adding an
motion.
additional amendment.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So in effect, what that is doing is amending what can be done at Rifle Range Park, but then it will be the only option because it's an up-down, yes-no vote on the whole referendum. There's not like, do you want option A, option B, or option C? So I'm not clear on how this will be affected in the actual vote.
So could we add an option B?
I
No.
think, I need to defer, but I mean, a referendum is one question.
Right, ma'am. And the way state law is written on this is that there's a yes or no. There's no either choice.
There's no
or
choice.
that.
Right.
And that unfortunately does make it very difficult. And even to the point where the election folks at Charleston County, if they feel a question's too complex, they can
Yes.
reword it.
Right.
So it's not my place to say what is or isn't too complex, but I don't know that there's going to be a way to include options. I'm not aware of any way to do that.
Okay. Well, also with this, we just appointed a commission that's going to take a look at this. I think we need to give them time to give us feedback. This economic landscape that we're going through right now, I just can't see me supporting this with looking at the financial landscape of the nation. So that's it.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I think Mr. Chapman was next. I'm
Is there a
sorry.
motion then, or
No, there was no motion.
There's a motion.
Oh, there's
On the main.
Well, there's a motion, but no second.
No second.
To amend.
Right, so we're in discussion now on the main motion to pass the whole ordinance that would give us the referendum.
Correct.
Well, on the
That's what we're-
on the amended motion.
On the amended motion, yes, sir. So you have the floor.
Thank you. As y'all might remember, at our last meeting, I mentioned that 49% of the voters during this referendum are going to be 50 years old and older. That's who's going to be voting on this. I would like to make an amendment to include senior center in the northern part of town. I might not even get a second, but I think it's important that we recognize the number of people that would be using a senior center in the northern part of town, and would have a reason to vote for it. I'm not saying that I'm not going to vote for whatever we come up with, because my kids use the fields all over town. And I think we need more fields, and it would be it's terrible that we have children that want to play soccer, want to play baseball, want to play lacrosse, and they can't in town because they don't have a field, because we've had so many people move in. We're now 94,000 people. We haven't added a lot of fields lately. So we need to do that too. And so I'm still pushing for what's in the CIP that we have is a senior center in the northern part of town. And I would, as an
Is that the form of a
amendment,
motion?
that's in the form of a motion.
Okay, let me ask before any action or inaction, define northern part of town, please, for clarity. Is that above the Isle of Palms connector?
right now, the senior center that we have is on Von Collins Road. Von Collins Road is south of the connector, south of a number of other streets as well. So I would suggest that we're talking Park West, where we're already doing some renovations at the Park West pool. That's probably the best general area to do it. So that is my motion.
I just want to make sure, for clarity's sake, as you make the motion, that we have an understanding of what northern part of town is. There's no line on the map, as some would have us believe. Okay, so we have a motion for a senior center in the northern part of town. Do we have a second? All right, motion fails for lack of a second. So we are back into discussion of the primary motion as amended. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Whitley.
So I think that there's been some misconception in the public about what a referendum is and what is going to happen should we support this referendum on final reading tonight. A referendum puts something on the ballot for November for the public to make a decision. This is not the council unilaterally raising taxes in order to fund $50 million for our recreation department. This would be the citizens of Mount Pleasant deciding that they deserve world-class facilities and choosing to put their money where their mouths are and vote to support this referendum and to give this money to the town so that the town can build out our parks, the Mount Pleasant Way, acquisition of green space, this tennis complex. We have had public comment for years of people coming forward and asking us for more ball fields, complaining about lack of space, lack of facilities for the arts and for youth. And I think that this referendum, rather than the town unilaterally imposing this tax on the citizens, gives the citizens a chance to state that that is what they want. This is a 15-year sunsetting. This ends. I think there's been concern that this is going to last forever. It does not. It lasts 15 years. If your house is worth $500,000, that's $80 a year for 15 years. If your house is worth $1 million, double that, $160 a year for 15 years. In a town of 90,000 people, 95,000 people, that is what gets us the 50 million in order to give our citizens the world-class facilities that they deserve. As for the commission, this was something that Mr. Icofano supported. The creation of this commission, the people that are joining this commission or that are putting their names in for this commission are people who have been asking for these facilities for years. These are people that will support the referendum and help spread the word to the public and correct misinformation and help the public understand what their dollars are going towards and what they're going to achieve. Rifle Range Road Park, we own 120 acres of that. There's another 120 acres that belongs to the county that is going to be purely green space with trails and roads. The whole purpose of the town acquiring our portion of Rifle Range Road Park was to provide facilities to our citizens. So I will be supporting moving forward with this referendum. I understand that we live in uncertain times in weird places, but I think that the citizens of Mount Pleasant deserve an opportunity to make a decision as to what they want. And if this, and I hope this referendum passes so that we're able to build the facilities that this town deserves.
Yes, sir. Mr. Icofano.
Just to piggyback on that, and that I believe that's county assessment, not Zillow assessment, not what it says on Zillow, what your house is worth. That's going to be that's your tax assessment, which could make a little bit of a difference in people's minds. There's a formula out there, and I should have done a little bit more homework out there, but the formula states, and I believe there's about 3 levels. Steve, we looked at that briefly on how much park space you're supposed to have in a town or in a municipality. And one of the minimum amounts was 9 acres per 1,000 people. We have about 100,000 people for simple math, which means that we're supposed to have about 900 acres of space. But it also divides out that you're supposed to have active versus passive space. When you start to include the county parks that are within our borders, we have plenty of passive space. We bought a piece of land hinged on economic development and possible hinged on sports up on Faison Road, and councils decided to only develop or put it out for RFP for about 25 acres. to keep 25 to 30 of those acres as passive. We have the county, we have all the county parks, that's passive. We do not have enough active space in this town. We promised the voters, at least I was part of it, that this was going to be a referendum. We've had hundreds of people show up. Any kind of doubt that this referendum was going to be passed, I don't think that the voters, I think the voters went on vacation and aren't here tonight to support and have to use their voice, because I think they left after the first one, after all the different meetings that they've showed up to. We've allowed the commission to go through, which we appreciate. Thank you for the votes on that. And we've allowed this to go through the first reading. It's on the second reading. I think the citizens deserve the opportunity to tell us what they want to do. And if they say no, they say no. The commission will help us. But we need more active space. I think we can get that formula out. That's 9 acres per 1,000. That's the low end. The high end's more like 15 acres per 1,000 residents. And I don't think that we would be meeting that active. I'll get those figures for you. All right, thank you.
I have a technical question. Ms. Kotoff, you're sitting there. Were you preparing to tell us something about the bond payments? The question I have, in what we got yesterday, it says the debt millage required for the payments 4 mills equals 4.4 million, and the estimated debt service payments are 4.4 million. Is that a year for 15 years, or is that a year until the debt is retired?
That would be for 15 years.
Okay, so when I do 4.4 million times 15 years, I get $66 million.
So our financial advisor, in January, we were looking at potentially 2.5%. Right now, we're looking at 3.5%, potentially 3.75%. At 3.75% interest on 15 million, it's 16 million in interest that would be paid. So that's where you're getting your 66 million, sir.
Got it. So, and this is just a question. It's not $50 million total in the deal. That's the bond issue. It's $50 million. So the interest is on top of that.
Yes, sir. So we would issue 50 million, and then the following September, after it would pass, when you set your millage rate, you would set the millage rate at the 4 mills.
Right.
And that town council does do that. And then we would structure the financing so that we pay twice a year in interest, then an interest and principal.
Okay.
And we would structure it such that once we have that millage, we'd start making the payments.
Okay.
So they would have 15 years. And state law does require that we cannot have a debt millage rate that is higher than our actual debt. So when it goes away, we really don't have an option. We have to reduce our debt millage.
Okay. Other question is, don't we have a reassessment of property, real property, every 5 years by state or county law, Mr. Peglerin? State law?
That's state, yes, sir.
Okay.
And they meet that
So
schedule.
there will be 3 reassessments during this, one every 5 years,
That would be
15
the-
years. So there'll be
that'd
3.
the schedule, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have a question of Ms. Kotal? Thank you. Sure.
Assessments can go down, though, correct? We have seen assessments go down as well, not just always up.
If you see one go down in Mount Pleasant, let me know.
Yeah, I will.
I would love to see that.
But
So-
we have seen them go down.
Let me put this out here. Does anyone else want to speak first? Because I have a few things I want to say. First of all, this is hot off the press. This is through June 30th. This is the median sales price of homes south of the IOP connector is $747,500. North of the IOP connector, this was January through June 30th, is $685,000. So the current taxes, we're at 39.1 mils, right? 39.1. On houses of that median value are $1,169 a year. If we go up 4 mils, we'll be at 43.1 mils. It will go up by $120 a year for homes at that $747,500 median. If you're at $685,000, you're currently paying $1,071 a year, you'll be paying $1,181 a year, which is $110 a year increase, or $1,649 over the 15 years. That's without any reassessment. So with 3 reassessments, and I doubt those are going up, I just want to be real careful about what I want to represent. This is actually going to cost you as a taxpayer, because with the median value, and our median value locally was before January 1st was $630,000. It's now $685 north of the connector and $747.5 south of the IOP connector. So a couple of things I want to say is, first of all, $16 million in interest is a lot of money. If we can find a way to do this without raising taxes and issuing bonds, I think we can find steps to do that without raising taxes. When I was running for mayor last year and into November, nobody asked me to raise their taxes. We raised taxes 2 mills to fix drainage and fund infrastructure. We restricted that millage to debt service for infrastructure, and most of that is drainage. Several council members voted against that then. This will be a tax increase of twice that amount in different economic times. We'll be raising taxes when the state of South Carolina is eliminating income taxes for veterans to attract people to the state. Inflation is at a 40-year high. Interest rates are up and continue to rise, not only for our citizens, but as we heard tonight, for the rates we'll pay on those bonds. At a meeting at the State Ports Authority on Friday, we heard that shipping volumes reflect consumer spending and confidence that is down. Studies show that big purchases are being postponed by our residents, by citizens. At Mount Pleasant Waterworks, we hired a consultant to give us inflation advice on budgeting for infrastructure projects. That answer is 1% per month, 12% a year. We will be building this out for years to come. We haven't impaneled our Recreation Advisory Commission yet. I would feel better voting to spend this kind of money after we have their input and after we have them impaneled rather than before. And just 1 week ago, what we've been working on since the first of the year, we added a $3.25 million expenditure to that. All added up, doing this now will deliver less product at a higher cost of construction and a higher cost of financing. And our constituents who will oppose this the most are likely the ones who can afford it the least. And I want to say that again. Our constituents who will oppose that the most are likely the ones who can afford it the least. This is not a sales tax referendum on variable cost, and which has tourists paying a large part of that. We have people on fixed incomes, and this is a tax on their home that we will be raising by 10% in one fell swoop in this economy. And they have 2 more assessments before it sunsets. Then we haven't addressed the operating costs that will be increased by bigger parks, more tennis centers, bigger things like that, that we know we're going to have to raise operating taxes again to fund that, because we got the numbers on the tennis center the other day. It loses $100 and something thousand a year, and the senior center loses $300,000 a year. So just throwing money at the problem, or just saying, hey, give us $50 million and we'll do great things, I don't think this is the time to do that. I've been on a listening tour around town, and I've asked everybody for weeks at the farmer's market, and this is what I get. Why all of the money all at once, and why right now? I've been asked, if it's so crucial and you're sure it's right, why doesn't council just dig deep and raise the taxes and go ahead and do it? And the other thing I got, which is very compelling, is someone told me that as a voter, they can hold us accountable. They can't hold their neighbor accountable. They can't get mad and vote their neighbor out of office. And how do they hold their fellow citizen accountable? So why would we force citizens to make the difficult choice of raising their own property taxes in this market, in this economy, by 10% during the highest inflationary period in 40 years? So finally, I'll say it's council who raises taxes. The referendum is advisory. I don't think we need to use that as an excuse to raise taxes if we won't do it ourselves. And I don't, just pitting our citizens against each other right now and having to make a hard financial choice when we all want to see these recreation facilities built. And I'll just tell you, I want to see them built. I just don't want to raise taxes 10% in this economy and pay $16 million in interest that if we did it over time after we impanel this committee, We could do it by a better way and not waste $16 million in interest. And so I just want to say that doing this during this time at these costs, during this uncertain economy, is not a leadership decision that I am willing to make. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I would love to have a council that is willing and able right now to raise taxes. I think our taxes are too cheap. So I think we could all be paying a little bit more in taxes in this town. I think provided the services we get, I think the staff does a wonderful job getting us the great services that we do with the budget that they have. So I think interest rates will continue to go up. So prolonging this, I think there's only one opportunity. I mean, I think you've got to get the money all at one time. If we build one soccer field at a time, it's going to be more expensive. We could talk about the interest rate that we're going to pay, but we're also getting, I'm going to say, a discount to do it at once. If you build one field at a time, that would be the most expensive thing that you could do. I mean, we can't, the quantity of scale will destroy us probably more than $16 million, and it will never get done. This property was bought in 2010. We've done nothing with it. And it was supposed to be, this is supposed to be the central park for Mount Pleasant. It is right in the center of the town, and it is supposed to be accessed by all of Mount Pleasant, and it's supposed to be, as New York has a central park, this is our central park. About 120 acres of passive through the county, and 120 acres, it will be less, probably about 60% of it will be active. This is the legacy park that was bought in 2010, and I don't, if council wants to raise taxes on our own, I mean, we're giving the choice to the citizens. But if council wants to discuss raising taxes, I'm happy to have that discussion.
Mr.
Thank
Mayor,
you.
May I?
Yes, you have the floor.
So it takes an $800,000 house, the taxes on an $800,000 house under our current millage rate to pay for the services received. So even with the median prices as high as they are, that means 50% of the homes in Mount Pleasant are not paying for the full cost of their services. Also, with the assessment, this council, when the last assessment occurred, actually chose to roll back the millage rate and give back some of that assessment. So simply because an assessment happens and prices go up, the council has to reaffirm the millage rate. And the council could choose at that point to roll it back so that the dollar amount on those homes does not increase. With Mr. Icafano, I agree with Mr. Icafano. If this council could raise the minimum tax rate to simply make people pay for the cost of their services, no matter the cost of their home price, I'd be happy to do that. And that would give us plenty of dollars in order to support our recreation department. But I don't think that is the will of this council at this time, to unilaterally raise taxes, which is why I think giving it to the citizens of Mount Pleasant to make the choice is the right decision. And if the citizens of Mount Pleasant choose not to, then I fully expect to have no more public comment asking us for more facilities.
All right, any other comments?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm the elder statesman up here, but I did have 4 children, 2 of which played a lot of sports. And to know that if we don't do this referendum, children in our town are not, in some cases, going to be able to play sports. I had a daughter who played softball, fast pitch softball. She was very good. When she went to high school, the school didn't have a team, so she couldn't play. It was devastating. My son played baseball. He was a starting pitcher on the All-Star team back when he played. After that, he jumped into soccer, did nothing but soccer. There were times when we, 30 years ago, couldn't find a soccer field for them to play in. We've got children right now in this town who aren't able to play sports because we don't have enough fields. We've had a number of people come to this council asking us to do something about it. By doing it with a referendum, we are not increasing our bond. We are increasing our bond capabilities by not using our normal bonding capacity. If we want to do increased fields, the kind that we need, as Mr. Icafano said, number-wise, this is the best way to do it. And I'll tell you, if we do it next year, the rates are going to go up. They're not going to go down. The interest rates are going up. If we don't do it now, it'll cost more to do it next year. The economy is where it is today because the Fed failed to do something a year or so ago. My point is, if we want to recognize the needs of the children in this community, this is the way to do it. And we need to vote, and I call for the question.
Any other comment? All right. All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Is that 2? All right, by 7-2, the referendum is advanced. All right. The last item on the agenda is executive session for the reason of appointing someone to the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. Mr.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we not go into executive session and recommend we appoint Mr. Richard Geisick, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. He's the only person who has applied.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Richard Geisick, who's the only applicant for this commission, for this seat on the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Geisick is appointed. There being nothing further on our agenda, we stand adjourned.
Good meeting, guys.